Good evening, members, and welcome to this evening's meeting of the Council at the Guildhall. Please be seated. As usual, our meetings are being webcast so that residents and other members of the public have the chance to see them live or to view them on demand later if they wish. In the unlikely event of an emergency requiring us to evacuate the building, please make yourselves aware of the emergency exits and follow the instructions of the security staff who are present this evening. I would also like to remind members that the guillotine will fall 3 hours after the start of the meeting. We will take 2 short breaks at appropriate points throughout the evening, aiming at a break after about an hour. Can I remind members, officers, and members of the public to please turn your mobile phones to silent and to mute any other electronic equipment for the duration of the council meeting. Thank you. Before I begin the meeting, I invite you all to observe a minute's silence in memory of 2 individuals with strong connections to our city. Catherine, Duchess of Kent, sadly passed away early this month. A proud Yorkshire woman, the Duchess was married in York Minster and was awarded the honorary freedom of the City of York in 1989. Former councillor Irig Thomas also sadly passed away last week. Irig served for many years on Huntington Parish Council, Rydale District Council, and was one of the first members of the Unitary City of York Council, serving as sheriff in 1997 to 98. Please join me in paying tribute to them both. Thank you, members. Before we move on to the business of the meeting, can I remind everyone of our agreement at the July 2023 meeting of full council, when we passed a motion requiring the Lord Mayor to remind us all about our net zero targets. With that in mind, you will all be aware that York's target for net zero is 2030. We need to adapt and thrive despite extreme weather, with the driest spring and summer in 132 years, the ongoing hosepipe ban and recent fire at Langdale Stark remind us of the impact of extreme weather conditions and encourage new skills and jobs to ensure a just transition. However, this is just the start. With only 1,565 days to the 31st of December 2029, the challenge is immense. We must and shall continue to work together to address the climate emergency. As usual, can I remind you to please speak clearly during debate and to always use your microphones. Remember to switch off your microphone after speaking. You should ensure that the microphone is directly in front of you, no further away than a sheet of A4 paper. And please speak directly into it. You should be close enough that your breath hits the grill on top. Please also ensure the papers and laptops don't obscure the microphone. Please indicate that you wish to speak by raising your hand fully and keeping it raised until I or an officer acknowledge that it has been seen. I will then call upon you to speak at the appropriate time. As always, please continue to behave respectfully and appropriately at tonight's meeting. I would like us to have a good, productive debate, giving as many members as possible the opportunity to have their say. To help us get through business efficiently tonight, I'd be grateful if we could keep the meeting focused and to the point. I will keep us on track if I feel that we are losing focus. I have received apologies from the Lord Mayor, Councillor Rowley, and Councillor Wardby. Do members have any further apologies to report? No. Thank you. May I ask all members who have a personal, prejudicial or disclosable pecuniary interest in any of the business to be discussed at tonight's meeting to declare your interests now, if you have not already done so in advance on the register of interests. Do I have members' approval to sign the minutes of the council meeting held on the 17th of July 2025? Thank you. The eagle-eyed members among you may have noticed that I am not the Lord Mayor, so apologies for any disappointments that's caused. The Lord Mayor has been very busy since his appointment in May, and many of us are struggling to keep up with the amount of work he has been doing, promoting and honouring our city and its residents. And I should like to put my thanks on record to the whole Civic Party for everything they are doing. You will notice some gifts on the table. Please take time and have a look at them during the break. They were presented to the leader from the Rugby World Cup teams, and I'm sure that Councillor Douglas will be very happy to talk to you about them at the time. We have a really busy meeting planned for tonight, and I'm sure that you would rather get on with the business in hand than listen to me. The only thing I would like to say is that across the country, and indeed the world, feelings about many issues have been running high. It would be good if here, in this chamber tonight, we can lead the way and show the value and importance of listening to one another and debating respectfully. So thank you. We now move on to item 5, public participation. We have 10 registered speakers tonight. Before we proceed with our speakers, I would like to remind all of our public speakers of the rules relating to public participation set out in our constitution at Council Procedure Rule 10. In exercising their public participation rights, a member of the public is entitled to express views, positive or negative, about the performance of the council, but must not say anything which is defamatory or discriminatory, make any personal attack on an officer and or member, disclose confidential or exempt information, including personal information, or comments on any live planning or licensing applications. I now call upon our first speaker, Peter Rowlings, who would like to speak in relation to the recommendations of the Audit and Governance Committee at agenda item 10A. Mr. Rowlings, you have up to 3 minutes.
Good evening. I am Peter Rowlings, Chairman of Ruffleford Napton Parish Council and Vice Chairman of the York branch of the Yorkshire Local Councils Association. We have grave concerns regarding the proposed changes to planning committees. Parish councils are the first line of local government, and planning, perhaps more than any other, is the area where residents look to us to project their views. The proposed changes significantly affect our ability to do so. We understand the desire to speed up the planning process, but are extremely disappointed that the council chose not to consult with the parishes. There may be no legal requirement to do so, but City of York Council's parish charter states that the council acknowledges that parish councils are the grassroots level of local government and that the City Council aims to work in partnership with local communities. Not to consult with us on a matter which goes to the very heart of local government goes totally against the spirit of that charter. As a provision of the charter, a quarterly parish liaison meeting is held at which the council is ably represented by Councillor Pavlovic, and surely this would be the ideal forum to discuss the proposed changes and arrive at a solution to suit all parties, and I am confident that this would have resulted in a better result than the one before you. Coming to the details, our major issue is with the minimum of 40 dwellings. Whilst this may seem reasonable from a city perspective, I feel I have to remind you that this council also covers an area outside the ring road consisting of rural parishes. In my own parish, a development of 40 houses would represent an overall increase of 10%, or in the case of Napton Village, 40%, without public scrutiny, and that cannot be acceptable. And it's not just about approval or not, but also about design features that parish councils can propose, utilising their local knowledge. There is no mention of local or neighbourhood plans in the proposals, so in theory, a development of 39 houses not in the local or neighbourhood plan could be decided without public scrutiny. I can see no mention of renewable energy projects in the categories. So again, an application for a solar farm covering many acres of the parish could be decided without public scrutiny. The call-in arrangements appear to be vague and provide little confidence and ample opportunity to reject requests. We believe the proposals as they stand are undemocratic, and it seems the parish councils, and with them views of residents, are being completely sidelined.
Mr. Rowlings.
And for this reason, I urge you to reject the proposals, or at least defer them, to allow time to work with the parishes to more clearly define the categorisation of applications to go to committee, taking into account the legitimate concerns expressed in the limited time available to me this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account when that item is dealt with. Thank you. I now call upon our second speaker, Edward Pearson, who would also like to speak regarding the recommendations of the Audit and Governance Committee at agenda item 10A. You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and good evening, members. It's lovely to be back from the other side. Tonight, I am speaking on behalf of Haxby Town Council regarding the proposed changes to the way planning applications will be handled. I wanted to raise a point about trust and respect. Haxby Town Council understood there is a parish charter in place, an agreement that is supposed to guide how City of York Council engages with parishes. The charter makes a promise that parish councils will be properly consulted on decisions that affect them. Yet here you are debating significant constitutional changes that directly impact parishes, with not a single town or parish council having been consulted. This is not a minor oversight, it's a breach of the principles that have been signed up to. If the council makes the decision to adopt these changes tonight, it will have done so knowing that it has ignored the parish charter, seriously damaging trust. By altering public participation rules and limiting who can speak at planning committee and reducing the amount of applications which reach committee, residents are effectively being stripped of their voice. The Charter commits City of York Council to recognising parish councils as the grassroots of local democracy, yet these proposals would silence them. Most parish councils have their own planning committees where local voices can be heard, yet there will be little or no opportunity to speak at the one forum where the decisions are made. The Charter also commits City of York Council to openness and transparency, but these constitutional changes appear to have been rushed forward without proper dialogue at a time when we know government reforms are coming. So why are you making changes now only to have to come back and change them again in a few months? This process looks less like partnership and more like convenience, a way of cutting corners and reducing debate. Silencing parish councils will not make development easier. On the contrary, it will fuel mistrust and create more resistance to the homes and infrastructure our city vitally needs. Haxby Town Council have been working on their neighbourhood plan and have had lots of discussion on the major new ST9 development. I have serious concerns that under these new proposals, amendments and mitigations that we have achieved would have been impossible under the proposed arrangements. The parish charter is a commitment made by this council to treat parishes with respect. If you value the parish charter, if you value local voices, if you value trust, then don't force through constitutional changes that trample on these principles tonight. Thank you for hearing us out. Have an excellent debate and a lovely evening.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account when that item is dealt with. I now call upon our third speaker, Helen Widdowson, who would like to speak in relation to the benefits of co-housing for the city. Ms. Widdowson, you have up to 3 minutes.
Hello, I'm Helen Widdowson, Chair of Spare Handle Co-housing based in York. Would you like to demonstrate how you have helped solve the housing crisis, nurtured mixed and multi-generational communities, combated loneliness and mental ill health, addressed the high costs of living, provided greener spaces benefiting everyone, reduced dependency on private cars, encouraged the building of good quality, sustainable homes? I know you would, because you're already trying to do that in some of the new builds around York. Well, co-housing can do all this and more. It is an idea whose time has come, with communities being established across the UK following successful developments across the world. There are successful working examples locally in Leeds, Sheffield, Lancaster, and there's an award-winning development in Cambridge. What all of them have in common is that they were developed with the support and help of local councils. Co-housing is about creating supportive communities with shared resources, private living spaces, allowing residents to maintain their independence and privacy. High quality, affordable, lifelong, sustainable homes with green spaces for play and growing food that encourage self-sufficiency and a healthy lifestyle. A place where people look out for each other. The positive impact is felt beyond the boundaries of the development. These are not gated middle-class communities. Spare Handle was established in 2018, and we have a loyal and active membership and an even wider circle of friends from across the city. We would like all to understand what co-housing can offer. So we would like to invite the Executive Member for Housing, Michael Pavlovic, to meet us in person in the near future. We would also like to speak to Darryl Smalley, the Liberal Democrat Shadow Councillor for Housing, and any other councillors who would be interested in learning more. We believe there could be opportunities for such a development to be included in the local plan if large-scale developers were made to fulfil obligations to provide space for community and self-builds. Council support could come in many forms, from helping identify suitable plots or conversions to providing meeting rooms. Hopefully, something to discuss at our future meetings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms Widdowson. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account. I now call upon our fourth speaker, Jake Furby, who would like to speak in relation to the Council's commitment to equality, diversity and inclusion and the role of the LGBT plus spaces. You have up to 3 minutes.
Hello everyone, my Deputy Lord Mayor, councillors, good evening and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Jake Furby and I'm the co-chair of trustees for York LGBT Forum and a director of Inclusive Equal Rights UK, both not-for-profit organisations working on LGBTQ plus inclusion, anti-racism and equality, aiming to improve relations between those who have a protected characteristic and those who do not. York is rightly proud to be the UK's first human rights city, and a city that has pledged to be trans-friendly, anti-racist, and a city of sanctuary. These commitments are more than words. They carry responsibilities to ensure safety, dignity, and belonging for all residents. Central to these responsibilities is the creation and maintenance of safe, accessible, and welcoming spaces for all marginalised communities. These are spaces where people can feel supported, feel valued, and feel included. These spaces are essential, not optional. They help reduce isolation, strengthen well-being, and build resilience. They are the places where communities connect, where voices are heard, and where hope is nurtured. Yet we know both civic and public spaces are increasingly under threat. The recent rise in racist graffiti across York is a stark reminder that hatred still finds a foothold in our city. Marginalised communities deserve safety. Inclusion cannot be limited to symbolic gestures. It must be lived, embedded, and applied across all areas of civic life, consistently and across the board. As England's historic second city, York has a proud tradition of governance and civic leadership. With that heritage comes responsibility, the responsibility to uphold the highest standards. The goal is clear: to make York's reputation as an inclusive, welcoming global city a place where every decision reflects human rights, equality, and solidarity. I ask all councillors to commit to working with all marginalised communities, ensuring that York values are reflected in every decision, policy, and service. By connecting our commitments as a human rights city, a trans-friendly and an anti-racist city, and a city of sanctuary, we can demonstrate what true civic leadership looks like in the UK. My Deputy Lord Mayor, councillors, I'm grateful for your ongoing commitment to these shared priorities, and I urge you to take tangible action to ensure that all public and civic spaces are safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account. I now call upon our fifth speaker, Michael Kearney, who would like to speak on York's status as a human rights city in relation to flag flying and LGBT plus hate crime. Mr. Kearney, you have up to 3 minutes.
Councillors, as we know, hate crimes are surging. Homophobic and transphobic abuse is in our streets, in our schools, and increasingly it's being normalised in civil debate. We've all seen the local headlines. We've seen pride flags snatched and racist graffiti daubed, at times with the support of our political leaders. And it is no coincidence that at the same time we are seeing rising hate crime, we are witnessing the vigilantism of fringe groups erecting flags across our city. The flags appearing across York may seem harmless to some, but many are rooted in racism and division. They're not about pride in our community. They're a dog whistle for hate against migrants and LGBT people. When these symbols are allowed to spread unchallenged, it sends a message that intolerance is welcome here. York must take a stand against racism and transphobia, not wave it from our lampposts. The question before you is simple. Will York stand on the side of inclusion, or will it remain silent in the face of rising hatred? LGBT people in York need safe spaces. We don't need debate on whether it's necessary. The death threats I have received, hundreds of them, speak for themselves. Bob Bell kindly writes, "Freaks at large again, hope there's a gallows, put them to good use." Paul Crowther vividly states, "AIDS carrying you lot should be put to sleep." And Sean Kirkham, a lovely chap, says, "A safe space for that lot would be a deep hole." Hundreds of these I have received. Any LGBT person will share with you their stories of avoiding York Centre at night, hiding their identity in public, or having transphobic abuse or levelled at them. Instead, many LGBT people seek a social life outside of our beautiful city. York's enhanced equity, diversity, and inclusion strategy unequivocally states that it will promote an equitable, inclusive, and engaged society, and to encourage activities where participation is disproportionately low. How are York doing this when York's social and nightlife is off limits to us? An LGBT safe space is not just about bricks and mortar. It's about building hope, resilience, and a public commitment to the equity that you promise. Let York be the human rights city you so proudly proclaim it to be. It would show that York doesn't just tolerate diversity, it embraces it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kearney. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account. I now call upon our sixth speaker, Bigby Eris Waterson, who would like to speak in relation to trans and non-binary issues in York, including around community events and safety. You have up to 3 minutes.
Hello, I run a support group for trans and non-binary people through the vehicle of group folk singing. My goal is to reintroduce lost folk, both people and song, to society. We have 30 members, and because our existing venue is in jeopardy, I've been having to look elsewhere to worse than no luck. Venues don't want to take the risk on us because of our identity. I don't want to name names for fear of retaliation, but in my search, I've faced discrimination as a response or even before a response. Some venues don't know what to do with us due to uncertainty around the EHRC ruling and temporary guidance. Some venues, including churches and chapels, have been receptive, but are afraid of backlash over ongoing trans rights moral panic. None of our theoretical alternatives are affordable. We need the council to either create or support and encourage development of an explicitly queer safe space that meets diverse needs. The council's actions and inactions around material support for queer venues has left my group and myself questioning the position of the council regarding their support for queer folk. We feel that this reality is a far cry from and not at all in line with the messages of support for the community that the council have previously made, as well as the official legal titles York holds, including Human Rights City. Our recent meetings have felt bittersweet and downcast. I find it very difficult as someone who runs the support group to inspire hope and integration in the attendees when we're facing the grim reality that we may not even have a safe venue to operate out of soon due to the lack of council and police support. I have found myself frustrated and distressed that my 30 members and myself have, as I feel, needlessly experienced this, knowing that the council holds the power to provide sanctuary for my vulnerable community. I will now finish with a non-exhaustive list of paraphrased community-gathered hate crimes that my community have recently faced within the city to further illustrate the need for such a safe space, and one that can operate until very late to fit our differing schedules and safer times of operation. A visibly queer friend of mine passing Betty's had a cigarette put out on his forehead, and unable to react due to shock, he was laughed at. There would be no incentive to do so other than the visible pronoun and flag badges on him. The same friend at a peaceful demo outside City Screen had a man demand for him to drop his trousers and prove whether he was a boy or a girl. Recently, in the Stonebow Co-op, a staff member said to another, "You should see the state of this," while gesturing to this same friend. Another individual, a trans woman who is harassed in the streets so often that it's difficult to illustrate, has been hate crimed in 2 of the city's McDonald's, one incident resulting in a brawl between police and patrons. Another individual, a trans man with mental health and neurodiversity intersections, has had to move back in with parents due to discrimination faced within supported housing and struggles to leave the house due to abusive comments like, "You're a girl," and "Is that a girl or a boy? I don't know, but I'd still shag it."
Mr. Waterson. Thank you. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account. I now call upon our 7th speaker, Sebastian Hook, who would like to speak in relation to a rise in anti-LGBTQ incidents and hate crime. You have up to 3 minutes.
Hello, I go by Hook. I'm not a pirate, but I am a local queer artist and producer. At this time, York does not have any explicitly queer safe spaces that are open in the evening. No bars, no venues, no nightclubs. If a visibly queer person wants to go out and enjoy an evening of art, drinks, or dancing and spend money doing so, there is no establishment for us to go to where we feel protected from queer-related harassment and hate. Similarly, if we are a queer artist and we want to put on a queer-focused event, we don't have any venues that we can book that allow us to create a fully inclusive environment for our desired audiences. As the government and the EHRC provide rhetoric and guidance that makes going out increasingly dangerous for queer and especially trans people, a lack of safety to be visibly queer in a space is a huge barrier for queer people when deciding to go out. This is a barrier that straight cisgender people do not have to navigate and should be considered when trying to achieve equity. There is also no way to have a healthy local art scene without queer art. And for York to have a thriving queer art scene, queer people need to have somewhere to go to see queer art, and queer artists need to have a shot at making art sustainably by having events that queer people feel safe enough to buy tickets to. Having a local queer venue and safe space is a huge step toward making that a reality. The City of York claims to be committed to achieve true equity, so I hope that you'll consider that in order for queer people to be able to safely contribute to York's proudly diverse and inclusive creative community and economy, the council needs to take into account the barriers we face to do so sustainably and recognize the importance of us having a safe queer community arts venue. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account. I now call upon our 8th speaker, Heather Disley, who would like to speak in relation to York as a global city and the significance of cultural unity and cohesion. You have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor and members of the Council. York is a global city. In 2024, we welcomed 9.4 million visitors, a 5% increase from the previous year. 14% of these were international, almost half stayed overnight, and tourism generated £2.01 billion for our economy, with overseas visitors alone contributing £0.5 billion. The University of York is another driver, with international students paying higher tuition fees and bringing vital economic activity. We also take pride in York's reputation. In early 2025, The Guardian named us one of Britain's happiest places, praising our modesty and warmth. Yet only months later, we see troubling signs. Racial hate crimes have increased sharply. The display of St. George's flags around the Minster and across the city has been linked with intimidation, creating fear among minority communities and eroding the inclusive identity York must uphold as a UNESCO heritage city. York is among the least diverse cities in England. According to the 2021 census, 92.8% of residents identify as white compared to 83% nationally. Residents I spoke to during my York Civic Trust award-winning research described feeling excluded within heritage spaces and highlighted racism within their neighbourhoods. York's lack of diversity makes it even more important that the city actively promotes inclusivity. We cannot afford to ignore this challenge. Visitors, international students, and residents all expect York to be a safe and welcoming place. Division damages not only community trust, but also our global reputation. Therefore, I recommend the Council take following actions. Remove divisive symbols. Work with the civic, church, and community partners to ensure that these flags and symbols associated with exclusion are taken down from public places. Strengthen hate crime response. increase support services for victims, ensure visible reporting mechanisms, and work with North Yorkshire Police to ensure safety for these communities. Inclusive heritage programming require museums, heritage sites, and festivals to actively tell diverse stories of York, highlighting minority contributions past and present. Community engagement, develop forums where residents, including the students and ethnic minorities, can shape cultural and civic life. Training and education, invest in anti-racism training for council staff, tourism workers, and local businesses to ensure visitors and residents are treated with dignity. York's prosperity depends on being a safe, welcoming, and inclusive heritage city. Let us act now to protect both our community and our global reputation. Thank you for listening and have a good evening.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted and they will be taken into account. I now call upon our ninth speaker, Ryan Wilson, who would like to speak in relation to community and rebuilding positive community organisations. You have up to 3 minutes.
I have lived in York for 5 years, and I would not have wished to have spent those last 5 years anywhere else. But in the last couple of weeks, I have made the effort to talk to as many locals as possible, people and businesses both. From this, one thing has become abundantly clear to me. People are feeling frightened, threatened, and embarrassed by the misuse of our national flags and the oppressive atmosphere that has been created in our city. One particularly notable event was when I was told that a French restaurant was hesitant to raise a French flag because they feared reprisal. These are the politics of intimidation writ large upon our city. I once spoke to people and incoming students about how safe our city was, of how accepting we are. Now I wonder if I was being a fool. But one thing is obvious from my efforts at outreach. This does not represent who we are. People are concerned, people are worried, but no one wants to be a target. We cannot let a minority of people decide how we are free to express ourselves and our opinions. We cannot let them speak for us or our city. I would like to invite the council to not just enforce the law and take down flags where they have been illegally raised, but also to work with our communities to show visibly that we are still a welcoming, safe, and inclusive place to live. It may feel as though we have plenty of events to bring our communities together. The Rugby World Cup is but one example. It provided a common point of interest and pride for our nation and our city. But with all events, it came and went, a transitory unifier. In real terms, community participation has been on the decline for as long as we can remember. How many of us know all of our neighbours? How many of us can afford in time and treasure to partake in club activities? After the pandemic and ongoing cost of living crises, we have receded into ourselves. Clubs, groups, and societies have all suffered in this period, leaving our innate desire for a sense of community unfulfilled and creating fertile ground for new community organisations. Irregardless of the effects, the effort to raise flags has built real links and a real sense of purpose in its participants, underlining a stark truth. If we do not build frameworks and incentives for positive community organisation, this discontent will be harnessed by negative groups. We must resist the urge to retreat into ourselves and those like us, and reach out with an open hand to build new positive links and communities within our city. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account. I now call upon our 10th speaker, Isabella Langdon, who would like to speak in relation to the recent international flagging campaign conducted in the city. You have up to 3 minutes. That's fine.
Good. Now, we're all paying attention. Fantastic. My name is Isabella and I'm a local PhD student. I study engineering at the University of York and I have lived in this city my entire adult life. York is a deeply English city. We are exemplified by our architecture, our narrow streets, our friendly locals, and the frankly insane variety of cuisine we have available to us. It is that culture that people come to visit, to study in, and to settle in. It is also now, and has always been, an international and a global city. Reaching back to its Roman and Viking origins, York traded with the world. Today, it is represented by our students, tourists, and migrant communities. This is what makes our city so beautiful. In the last few days, I have spent my time walking around town centre, speaking to residents and shop owners. What I have heard from residents is children chased by grown men screaming racial slurs, locals accused of being illegal immigrants on the streets in broad daylight, people screamed at for daring to remove flags, council workers abused for doing their jobs. Families are now not coming to visit this city because they have been reading our local news, or because the person they are visiting no longer feels York is safe for them. Students are now going home early from freshers because they don't want to walk in the dark. And who can blame them when a student was beaten on campus at midday? International students are challenged now to speak English in town when speaking among themselves. The same students who are telling me they are now avoiding town, which, to turn to economic effects, is harming our local businesses. This is real. This is what is happening in our city right now. The racist graffiti concerns me greatly. The depiction of the swastika next to the St. George is foul and offensive imagery. It's true that teenagers have always tagged, but this combination is new, and they are learning this at home, and they are learning this in our schoolyards. The recent attacks on businesses and homes is targeted. Although I hope at the beginning the Raise the Colours campaign and York Flaggers was one of national spirit, it is clear the issue has turned sour and is now inspiring despicable behaviour. If we allow this to continue, I foresee our city going down a dark road. This shift in attitude has happened recently, and I truly believe it is reversible. We would like to see all the flags of the world flying in our city alongside our own, so that everyone can feel represented here. In the last 80 years, our flag has stood alongside and in defence of Europe and the world, and represents a country of tolerance, regardless of race, religion, ideology, or sexuality. We have hosted the Women's Rugby World Cup. International students have now arrived in our city, and we still have many tourists on our streets. Let's make them feel welcome. Let's make them feel safe. We also want to see more street rangers visible and a concerted effort to protect our friends and loved ones that make their home here. I ask the council to consider helping in this mission to put up international flags around town alongside our own, to show our flag is not one of hate, but one of unity. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Your comments have been noted and will be taken into account. That concludes the public participation session this evening. We now move on to item 6, petitions. Formal notice have been received of 2 petitions to be presented this evening. The council procedure rules allow 1 minute to present a petition to council. I now invite Councillor Taylor to present a petition regarding parking restrictions on Manor Drive South.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. It's a pleasure to present this petition tonight. 44 signatures from Manor Drive South. They're seeking either access-only parking restrictions or a res park scheme for Manor Drive South as a result of, I guess, a mix of very small planning decisions that have created more parking pressures and also changes to the very local co-op privately owned car park. It's a high pressure parking area. I really hope that the residents here can have a positive and fast response to this petition. One more thing on the list, of course, and hats off to the resident Steve Wright, who took it upon himself to get this done and shown a bit of initiative. So it's a pleasure to present it. Cheers.
Thank you.
Do I come up to you or someone come and get it from me? I should know this by now.
I'll see you at half-time.
See me later. Yeah, cheers.
I now invite Councillor Orrell to present a petition regarding a pedestrian and cycle crossing in Huntington.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Nearly 3 years ago, Huntington and New Earswick Liberal Democrat councillors arranged a meeting with officers to assess the siting of a crossing on New Lane to the path to the park and ride and all the facilities at Vanguard, as it had been finally agreed that government criteria for a crossing had been met. Whilst we were there, a teacher had to stand in the middle of the road to stop traffic so that this so that his class could cross the road to the path. Lord Mayor, people have signed this petition from across Huntington. It was expected that the crossing would have been installed 2 years ago. There should be no further delay, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. That concludes the presentation of petitions this evening. In accordance with the council procedure rules, these petitions will be referred to the appropriate decision maker, and the member submitting the petition will be informed of any meeting considering the petition. We now move on to item 7, report of the leader and executive. I now invite the leader, Councillor Douglas, to present her written report, which you will find at agenda item 7 of the council agenda. Standing orders allow 3 minutes for presentation of the leader's report and 3 minutes for any response by other group leaders.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. And I would, first of all, before I start, like to pay tribute to the memory of both Councillor Eric Thomas and the Duchess of Kent, as the Deputy Lord Mayor had already outlined. I also will take a slightly different approach to my speech this evening. Usually it would refer to my report, but this evening it is so important that I think that I talk about the incidents and the situations that we have seen in our city that many of the public speakers spoke to just a few minutes ago. So on this subject, I know that we as colleagues, councillors and elected representatives of our communities across York are intensely proud of our city, our home, our county and our country. We have seen since early August the values of our beloved city we hold so dear be challenged with a row over the flying of flags on council-owned lampposts and our city walls. You have heard me say clearly that for many people in our country, the flags being put up are a symbol of their deep patriotism and pride in our home, our city and our country. But the flags that have been put up on lampposts across York are there illegally. There is a process that must be followed. This has been ignored. This illegal flag flying causes safety issues for pedestrians, road users and workers who are tasked with taking them down. This all costs taxpayers money, unbudgeted money, the costs for equipment, staff and road closures, money that cannot therefore be spent on residents' priorities, be that filling potholes or caring for their older neighbours, friends or relatives. As time has gone by, we have all seen the sinister side of the organisers and of their flag flying made public through their interviews in local and national media and their social media posts. They are primarily driving division and tensions in our communities. This has also coincided with an increase in our residents feeling unsafe, vulnerable and threatened in their homes and communities. There has been vile, racist graffiti, verbal abuse and physical attacks.
20 seconds.
This is not the York we all love, and it is not patriotism. In the last week, as the council has started to take down the illegal flags, we have seen contractors and council staff verbally abused and harassed while doing their job serving our city. There has also been a death threat made against one of our elected MPs and threatening publication of personal details of parish councillors and residents standing in opposition to the flag flyers. This is not the York we all love, and it is not patriotism. I know that I do not stand alone, airing my deep, deep concerns on these issues. Many, many citizens, organisations, communities and elected representatives have raised their concerns with me, and I know you too hold the same concerns. As a city, we must collectively show a zero tolerance approach. This is unlawful and threatening behaviour, and it must stop. I call on us all to stand together support our communities and show everyone. York turns its back on these unacceptable behaviours. We stand strong, we stand together, united in our values, our city and our fantastic communities hold so dear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas. I did allow Councillor Douglas's speech to go on a little bit longer, and I will allow the other group leaders the same privilege. If any of the other group leaders wishes to respond to the leader's report, please can they indicate now? Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I spent a long time editing it to try and get it down to 3 minutes, so it would have been handy to know before, but I shall do my best. Obviously, we want to join with Councillor Douglas and the public speakers that have been here today in the call for unity. The racist and vile language spray painted across parts of York has been a particular lowlight in our city's history. And it is incumbent on us, all of us leaders within the city, to lift us ourselves, everybody else and our members up above this culture war agenda that the far right is desperately trying to get us to engage in. As our own York Central MP said, we've seen the polls and ultimately we saw people on our streets last weekend, the disaffected people that feel they haven't got a political home in Labour. Labour locally and nationally were elected on the quest of optimism and a mandate for change. But unfortunately, too many residents feel they're being left behind. And if urgent action does not happen locally and nationally to raise people's living standards, we will unfortunately see more and more turn unnecessarily to the political extremes. Turning to the leader's report, we have 13 pages of self-congratulation that predominantly highlights the achievements of others, despite rather than because of this administration. These are definitely to be commended. The Rugby World Cup, Aesthetica, the York Museums Trust, the Youth Council, the mayoral funds, and specifically this weekend, the achievements of York Knights. Residents, however, are asking us what impact this executive is having on their city. Overwhelmingly, they tell us this is negative. Cycling activity is at its lowest levels. Bus journeys are down. With car parking and footfall down, this is not choosing different modes of transport. This is people voting with their feet and going elsewhere. Roads and footpaths are crumbling. Cycle lanes are not being repainted. The executive member herself delivers leaflets bemoaning her own weed control failures. We still await news of Castle Mills and Castle Gateway, but we have already lost one of the key benefits of this scheme with the scrapping of funding for the new bridge. The deputy leader at Scrutiny said he was 100% committed to delivering that bridge. I suppose this came with the same cast iron guarantee as national government and our local MP announcing full funding for the Outer Ring Road, which was simply not true. Where is this promised money for duelling? How much cost has been added to the project through 2 years of dither and delay from Labour locally and nationally? It's bad enough to re-announce existing funding as something new, but this should at least come with the admission that this political stunt has cost tens of millions in inflation. Councillor Pavlovic refers to losing trust in politicians. Along with Willow Bank, I'm afraid this is just another error in the report. People lose trust in politicians for saying one thing and doing another. Promising a council tax freeze and not delivering. Announcing funding for a station that was already there. Supporting duelling, then taking every step to scupper it. Saying a project is fully funded when it isn't. Campaigning for school crossings, then quietly abandoning them when in power. Changing footfall measures when it's shown they're negative. While we welcome the recent first baby steps to hoodwink the media that election promises are being delivered, it's too little, too late. With just over 18 months to the next election, you need to go much further, much faster to convince the electorate.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Stewart, did you wish to respond?
Yeah, thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. As usual, I won't say a great deal. I will sort of say there's not a great deal in this report. The leader can scowl at me and then we can move on. Just a couple of things to sort of touch on in terms of, obviously we mentioned the community stadium and the great work or the great games we've had for the Rugby World Cup. So it's really positive. Obviously the Knights doing so well. They're clearly on the cusp of promotion to Super League outright or promotion to Super League potentially in some form of an expanded Super League, and that would just be absolutely fantastic for ourselves as a city. Councillor Eyre has made many of the points that I would make about the should we say less than perfect parts of the administration. For example, we have the Catch the Bus month in September, when the bus shelters were torn away in many parts of the city, and it was supposedly to be 1 week and still to be replaced. So hopefully the executive member for transport can sort that out very soon as the nights and days get colder and wetter. But I'll just comment on the flags issue, which obviously has had a lot of interest, and the leaders obviously made some very, very carefully considered and very sensible remarks. And I do entirely agree with the comments made. I'm a very patriotic, proudly patriotic person. I love the flag. I think it's a great thing to see the flag. There is nothing racist at all about the flag that we have, the English flag or the Union flag. But obviously it can be misused, and that is what we've seen to some extent with the numbers that have been put up. I don't think there's any more non-racist country than the UK. I certainly hope there isn't. And we have also seen some of the organisers tangent onto homophobic areas, which is obviously in every single way totally unacceptable. Clearly, we'd absolutely condemn any racist abuse, any homophobic abuse, anything which isn't York and isn't the country. The only sort of point I think I'll potentially be is that where these flags have gone up, we don't favour them all being taken down. I think it's the only slight deviation, as the leaders are aware. If people are putting up something on a lamppost, it is by definition always illegal. Everything that goes up on a lamppost is illegal. If somebody lost their cat and put up a poster, you wouldn't expect that to be taken down. If somebody puts up an advert for a summer fair, you wouldn't expect that to be taken down. If you put up something for a commercial operator for months and months, you would expect that to be taken down. And I don't think it would be particularly helpful if we get into it. The council will take down the flags, as obviously is done at more expense in terms of the safety, everything like that, and then they get put back up every time. So I think in areas, the residential areas where they're put up by local residents, I think it would make sense to leave some up, is my personal view. Otherwise, I do think we're going to be in this take them down, put them back up. And I think that's the sort of middle ground potentially, because the flag is in no way for me something that's divisive. It's the way it's potentially used that we don't want to see. But I do very much agree with what obviously carefully considered comments from the leader, and agree with those, and clearly everybody in this chamber would absolutely condemn any form of racist abuse, any form of homophobic abuse that we have seen or we do see going forward.
Thank you. We will now take a short break. Please ensure you are back in your seats to recommence at 7:40. Thank you. Thank you, members. I will now invite members to question the leader and executive members in respect of any matter within their portfolio responsibility in accordance with the Council Procedure Rule B8. Please can you address the Deputy Lord Mayor with your question, speaking clearly and indicating to which executive member your question is directed. There is a maximum of 35 minutes in total for questions in this session. As a reminder to members, under the new Council Procedure Rule B8, supplementary questions or comments are limited to one question or comment from the original questioner and a total of one further question or comment from any other member. If any of the questions which have been put cannot be answered at the meeting, a written reply will be circulated to members within 5 working days following the meeting. And I can see a lot of hands. Councillor Widdowson.
Many thanks, Deputy Lord Mayor. This is for Councillor Ravilius. It has become clear that the failure to secure funds for the government to dual the Outer Ring Road as promised is due to a breakdown in communication between the council and the government. Could I ask the executive member who exactly is to blame for this? The council for not communicating the increase in costs, the York Outer MP, or the North Yorkshire Mayor for not lobbying the government effectively, or the government for not providing the funding?
Thank you. I think we understand the situation differently. There has not been a failure in communications. We lobbied, the Mayor lobbied, our MPs lobbied for funding for the Outer Ring Road. We lobbied for the funding at the time. We didn't know what the full cost of the Ring Road project would be. It was still under review. We have achieved receiving the funding for the original cost that was estimated some years ago. We will now, as you know, move forward in phases as planned. We have a new head of projects in place. He has come from National Highways and is well placed to understand the process to bring forward the Outer Ring Road at pace. We're working through those procurement packages, the legal and the design, and engaging with the DFT on the funding and transferring that over. I don't really have a huge amount more to say. If there's anything specific, I know that there's been FOI requests, which is further slowing down progress for officers. But if there is anything specific around the funding, I'm happy to look into those questions for you. But I don't see it from the same angle as you are.
Councillor Widdowson, did you have a supplementary?
Yes, please, Lord Mayor. Thanks, but that doesn't really answer my question. Labour controls all levels of government, from the council to the MPs to the mayor to the government. They have announced they are funding the dualling in full. That's the government have announced it, but they're not. It's obvious that there has been a disastrous breakdown in communication that no amount of obfuscation or gaslighting can hide. So who should the residents who are consigned to spending more and more hours stuck in congestion hold to be accountable?
As I said previously, there has not been a disastrous breakdown in communication. We asked for some funding for dualling the Outer Ring Road. The ask was based on previous estimates. At the time, we were still reviewing the full cost of the project. The lobbying was going on simultaneously. We have been successful because of that lobbying in getting the funding to get us going on the Ring Road in phases. Residents will see those benefits start to emerge as quickly as possible, and we are moving forward with the parts that will bring the greatest benefit and unlock housing development opportunities, and residents will see those benefits soon.
Councillor Rao, was that a further supplementary?
I think let's be clear on this issue of communication. The government and the York Outer MP said unequivocally they had funded the full dualling, and you're saying there isn't. How can that not be a failure of communication when the government is saying one thing, the York Outer MP is saying the same thing, and the council is saying completely the opposite?
We have asked for funding. Our original ask was based on the original estimate of the cost of the ring road. That's the funding we've got.
Right, Councillor Nichols.
Caught me out there. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. My question is also to Councillor Rivilliers. But first of all, a thank you for consulting widely with the people of Bishopthorpe and agreeing to the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit, which has been well received, and hopefully the rest of York can start to follow our lead in Bishopthorpe, the leading ward in York. My question is there any possibility of there bringing in a limit on the weight of lorries going past schools at morning and afternoon times? It's causing problems in our village, and be much appreciated if it was possible in any scheme whatsoever to stop lorries going past schools at certain times. Thank you.
So, Councillor Nichols, thank you for your appreciation on the 20-mile-per-hour zone, and I'm really delighted to have been able to bring that forward for Bishopthorpe and to have worked with you on that. And, you know, we are really serious about road safety, and that 20-mile-per-hour limit is the first step in making the roads safer for your community in Bishopthorpe, and also setting the process out clearly for how we achieve that in other communities, which we'll move on to deliver as time goes on. And we have funding from the Mayor to do that. And as you know, we're going to come back and look at how we tackle the roads where compliance wasn't great, and make sure that we can have 20-mile-per-hour outside every road where people are living. So that work is all still to come. You raise a good point about the risk presented by HGVs travelling too fast through the village. This is an ongoing problem due to haulage companies being situated, as you know, between Cotmanthorpe and Bishopthorpe, and the vehicles have to go through one village or another. So it's a problem for both villages. I'm well aware of that. I don't want to do one thing in one village that then makes it worse for the other village. So I have to think about, in fact, there's 3 villages that could potentially be affected because the lorries can go out in 3 different ways. So we have to be really careful about whatever measures we implement, that no one village is affected worse than another village. We have looked at weight limits. It's unless there is a structural issue, such as there was with the bridge, it's very hard to start bringing in a weight limit on lorries. We could put in a weight limit for environmental reasons, but those weight limits can be overridden by the lorries that are coming through. So I think I will certainly talk to officers, and I am continuing conversations about how we reduce the risk from HGVs travelling through all those villages. I'm not convinced that a weight limit is the solution, but I am very happy to work with you on looking at what we can do around HGV traffic.
Councillor Merritt, was that a supplementary?
Yes, it is, Lord Mayor. Can I ask, in terms of 20 mile an hour, what plans there are to bring the benefits of 20 mile an hour to other parts of the city? And in particular, will the executive member consider including all of the Groves community within a single 20 mile an hour zone, including Huntington Road from Monkgate roundabout to Grove Terrace Lane bus stops, as per the resident requests that we've previously raised?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Merritt. So just to give some stark statistics, every year around over 200 collisions happen across the city that result in either death or serious injury. Over half of those are pedestrians and cyclists. And so roughly every year, around 5 people lose their lives on our roads and around 35 suffer life-changing injuries. Much of that is speed is a contributing factor, and it's not reasonable for it to carry on. We know that we need to introduce speed reduction across much of the city, and particularly in areas where people live and where people are trying to walk and cycle around the city. So I am absolutely in support of bringing it first and foremost to the communities that are asking for it. And I'm well aware that the community you talk of in the Groves area is very much wanting to see safer roads and safer streets where people live. I'm working with officers on how we roll out that more widespread 20-mile-per-hour programme. Bishopthorpe has been really useful in that trial and understanding of how we implement using, first of all, signs only, and then what other measures we need to include. So in order to have really successful 20 miles per hour, often it will be signs plus some design changes to the roads, plus some police enforcement. And I'm working with Joe Coles, our Police, Fire and Crime Commissioner, on looking at if we can start bringing in some police enforcement as well to 20 miles per hour and 30 miles per hour zones in the cities. So we're trying to bring all those ingredients together, and officers will be putting together a strategic programme to roll out 20 miles per hour to other communities in the city. We have got a significant number of requests, and we will start to work through those, and I will bring that forward, and I'll be really happy to share it with those of you whose communities are asking for it.
Thank you.
Councillor Crawshaw. Sorry about that. I'm out of practice, so please bear with me. Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Residents of Cottonthorpe have about half a dozen bollards outside the Royal Oak pub, and they'd like half a dozen bollards on the other side on Main Street. They've been quoted and I know the administration doesn't have the greatest reputation on bollards, but they've been quoted a figure of, sorry, the previous administration doesn't have the greatest record on bollards. Yeah, this administration did okay on bollards, sorry. Okay. They've been quoted £7,000 by the council for a feasibility study into whether half a dozen bollards can be put in, where it would cost a tiny fraction of that to do the entire job. Would the Executive Member for Transport be willing to look into that and hopefully give a more realistic assessment, hopefully get these bollards installed and make that area a safer place?
So I'm not aware of the bollard application. I'm very happy to come and to talk to officers about what is being requested there. I think the first thing to understand is what you're trying to achieve. So rather than necessarily saying the bollards are a solution, let's understand what residents are trying to achieve. Part of the reason for the cost, I imagine, is not because it's just the cost of the bollards, but it's the cost of assessing the road conditions and what solution will best achieve the result that you're trying to reach. So often it seems more expensive than it is. The bollards themselves are not going to be that expensive, of course, but there is the work that has to go into the design and implementation of the scheme to make sure that it's safe, it's accessible, it meets highway requirements, and that it's achieving what it's trying to achieve. I confess I don't know the specifics of this project at all. I'm quite happy to ask officers about it at my next briefing. I would hope that we can do something for a reasonable price and achieve the outcome that residents are looking for.
Was that a supplementary? No. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. This is a question for the Deputy Leader and a section in his executive report. Can the Deputy Leader explain how the UK Film Production Summit will benefit our city and what it means for jobs and career pathways for the current and next generation?
Thank you, Councillor Clark. I've been waiting 6 months to be asked a question at full council, so very pleased to receive that one, and quite timely as well. The UK Film, TV and Production and Games Summit that is coming to York in November is being organised by Aesthetica, whose art prize launches tonight in the city, in conjunction with support from ourselves and the Combined Authority. And every single UK film and TV production and games company is coming to York. So that's obviously the BBC, Channel 4, ITV, etc. But beyond that, all of the main production companies, so Ridley Scott Associates, Aardman, all the people that make all the things that we all really enjoy, as well as all the games producers that I won't pretend to know who they are because that's not my generation. So they're all coming to York, and the opportunity while they're in York is to say, what a great place this is. What a fantastic place to base either your business or your satellite, because we have in this city a really thriving cluster of digital media professionals and experts. So we can showcase the city. We can make sure that they'll want to invest in our city, come and make their games and their films here. Already happening. I had a request just the other day for more filming in York. So we need to build on that because, and this is the key point for our residents really, the film industry, the games industry, TV industry, they don't have very high barriers to entry. So if you're not particularly academically gifted, and why should you be? You know, good half of the population isn't, then it is a route into a decent job that's going to earn you a decent wage. You know, we're talking £50,000 a year plus, and we need to make sure that those opportunities are available primarily for all our young people, but of course older people as well can switch careers as they find that there's no need for accountants and bookkeepers anymore because they've been AI'd out of business, switching careers into that industry. So it's the first time that this summit has ever happened across all screen-based industries anywhere in the UK. It's a major achievement. Hats off to Sherry Frederico, who's mainly pulled it together. And we're really looking forward to making sure we secure the opportunities that it brings for York and its residents.
You have a supplementary, Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I do have one. Just to build on the Aesthetica Short Film Festival, obviously that's a very significant internationally round event and one that I, in its 15th year, one that I support and do my best to attend every year. Could you just say a bit more about how that festival develops career opportunities and how it attracts visitors to the city, please?
Absolutely, it's like buses this, isn't it? No questions for ages, then 2 at once. So those of you, I'm sure everybody in this room has attended the Aesthetica Film Festival. It is a global event, so it's a BAFTA-nominated film festival. So if you get your film shown at the Aesthetica Film Festival in York, then it can be nominated for a BAFTA, and they have had films that debuted here in York that then went on to win BAFTAs. And it is a global event, so we have people of all races, creeds, colours, religions, all come into York and say what a fantastic place it is, how welcome they feel while they're here, and what a great place it is to do business. So it really does adds a buzz to the city for the weekend while it's here. And most importantly, what we have started to do, started last year, it was hugely successful. We're building it up this year, is all of our state secondary schools produce a film that is debuted at the global international BAFTA nominated Aesthetica Film Festival. So on the Sunday of the film festival, every state school in York will be showing a film that they have made from scratch. So that's from inception to development of the idea, to writing it, to finding the locations, to who's going to do the camera work, who's going to do the sets, who's going to write the scripts, who's going to be the actors, who's going to be the directors. These kids make these films entirely on their own, with support from some of the experts that we've got living and working in this city. And the preview day, I urge you all to attend. It will be after after we've had the memorial the memorial service for Memorial Day in the morning, and then lunch in the afternoon. Get yourselves into City Screen and see the films that these kids have made. It's a brilliant event, and it says to those kids, there is a career for you here in the film industry. You can stay living in York. You can earn a decent wage. You've got a talent. It's great to see it being used.
Councillor Croshaw, was that a supplementary?
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. Supplementary on that. Councillor Cobain, you talked a lot there about the sort of economic things, touched a little bit on some of the cultural, as in the diversity type stuff, but it does seem to me that a lot of the problems that we have at the moment in the city and nationally are around communication and dialogue. And I'm just wondering if there's also an opportunity to use events like this to really push both the narrative of what we all know the city to be, which is open and inclusive, but also perhaps use some of those opportunities to start that conversation with parts of the community that perhaps have felt disconnected or have been fed information that gives them a skewed view of what the city really is like.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great opportunity for that, Councillor Crawshaw, because there is something for everyone in that festival, you know, drama, comedy. This year there is also fringe events going on that will be accessible to absolutely everybody that wants to partake. And the great thing about it really is that you get exposed to difference in a setting that's comfortable and relaxed, and you can see how different people think and talk and behave, and you get to understand different cultures. And I think the point for communication for us all now is for us all to understand each other, to understand where we're all coming from, to understand our different views, to understand our different cultural backgrounds. And the festival definitely presents a really great opportunity for that in York. And I would urge everybody to urge all of their residents to come and partake in it and enjoy what York will have to offer.
Thank you. Councillor Culwick.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. This question is for Councillor Webb. In 2023, you were elected on a very clear promise to ensure a free school lunch was available to every primary school child in the city. So can you please give us an estimate of the date by which you will deliver this promise?
Thank you, Councillor Cullick. It's a really good question. What I'd say to it is, obviously, since 2023, we've had a lot of change in the country, haven't we? We've now got a national government that is offering to deliver free school meals, free school breakfasts in all primary schools. And I'm really interested to see, obviously, we're in a pilot phase for that right now. And I'm feeding back on the good points and the bad points about that, because I want to see where that takes us, because that has obviously impacted on what we're doing in York as well. I've been really surprised at how successful the breakfast programme has been. And if you look at some of the scrutiny work we did, or the universities did for us, it really showed that the breakfast offer is making a huge difference. So it's really great that the Labour government is bringing that forward. And I'm hopeful that that will be very soon, because that will certainly help us here in York. Further on what we're doing here specifically, since we first came into power, we've obviously trialled free school lunches at Westfield Primary School, and I'm so glad that that's going fantastically well. And residents, families, children really support what Labour have done over in Westfield. We've also been trialling our breakfast offer at Burton Green. We've expanded that to Fishergate as well. We have a plan to expand further. And what I'd like to see is what we've done is we've gone from essentially just trialling it with the schools of interest, and we've formalised it slightly. We've now got a steering group for York Hungry Minds, and schools essentially register their interest. And we've got a number of schools that are coming forward with what they want to do, how they can make it work in their schools, because it's not as simple as just turning up with more food, as you can probably imagine. So the steering group is meeting. I was quite disappointed that opposition members who were invited to join that steering group have purposefully declined that opportunity. I'll be honest, I can sort of forgive the Conservative group. as one of the members is Lord Mayor, and there are only two of you who are not Lord Mayor. So you've got a lot going on between you. But the Liberal Democrats have purposefully declined being involved in that group. And I can only assume that is from the leadership of the Liberal Democrats, because quite frankly, I spoke to individual members in the Lib Dems who were quite pleased and to be invited and might want to get engaged. So that's where we are now. I have to say it's delayed the start of that steering group. It's a real shame, but we are moving forward and doing our best. Thanks very much.
Councillor Colwick, you have a supplementary.
Point of order.
Oh, sorry. I haven't got my hearing aids in.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Just on a point of accuracy, we have said we will happily be part of that committee. Councillor Nichols is our representative, so that's definitely been emailed to officers. That was probably 4 or 5 months ago.
Oh, apologies, that hasn't been communicated to me. Councillor Nichols, meetings next week. Looking forward to seeing you there. Thank you. Apologies.
We have joined the Lib Dems and asking, questions that they have about the history and meetings and everything like that, but we've been absolutely clear Councillor Nichols would like to be part of that group.
Just the Lib Dems then. Cheers.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Colwick.
Thank you. My supplementary is this. Given that your answer clearly indicates the promise will not be kept, would you like to take this opportunity to apologise to all the families across the city who've been misled, who are not receiving those promised free school lunches, and indeed find themselves effectively subsidising lunches elsewhere through their council tax?
I think that's an absolutely shocking way to talk about supporting children in some of our most deprived communities. An absolutely disgraceful thing to say. We should be supporting our young people in every way we can. And I think that really speaks volumes about the Liberal Democrats' opposition to helping families in York. We are, of course, moving forward as much as we can. I would ask that your question writer, and I'm sure Councillor Avilius would agree, try and think of more questions so you don't ask the same thing again and again. Thank you.
Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Chair. And I'll start by reflecting on how we started this meeting and how we deal with people and how we send a message to the wider city, and using words like shocking and disgraceful are inflammatory and raise the level of discourse, and we should be really careful if we're asking people to speak in a respectful way that we do that. But my supplementary, and I'm glad Councillor Webb came for it, the Liberal Democrats have been quite clear that we're happy to be part of that steering group. We have never said no. We asked a specific question, which I will ask the same question to Councillor Webb, that he provides all members of that steering group with copies of the minutes of the previous meetings of that steering group and what individuals were involved in that steering group. You have previously hidden behind FOI, which is not applicable to councillors on a group, by the way. So will you today guarantee that all members who take part in that steering group will have access to the previous minutes of that meeting and who was in attendance, so they can fulfil their duties as councillors?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Eyre. To be clear, some of the members of the steering group are not councillors, and I have followed the rules and followed officers' advice regarding the numerous FOIs that you have put in to obviously, when you could have just asked. And also, to be really clear, just turn up to the meetings and find out what we're doing. Just honestly, I'm not trying to hide anything. Please come along, find out what's going on, get involved. Thank you.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. My question is to Councillor Douglas. Will the leader join me in celebrating the fantastic impact that York hosting the Women's Rugby World Cup has had in our city, not only for bringing world-class athletes such as Ilona Maher, but also in inspiring young people locally, boosting our visitor economy and strengthening York's reputation as a city that absolutely champions women's sports?
Yes, and thanks for that, Councillor Baxter. Really has been a high point of the year, I think, for many people in the city, and the gifts that we have in front of us here are a reminder of the welcoming ceremony that I attended along with Councillor Rowley and other councillors to welcome 4 international women's rugby teams to York. That was Canada, Fiji, Spain and New Zealand. And it was one of the most uplifting days I have had for a long time, to be honest. And the amazing women international elite athletes that were on show there, but not only their competitive nature and their readiness for a fantastic rugby tournament, but also the way that they supported each other along that route, where we know that the Black Ferns, New Zealand, are really an outstanding team, and others were coming to their first international rugby team, and Spain would be a good example of that. It was really heartening to see how they supported each other and were really very happy to be in York. It was a joyous event. I also attended a couple of games while the group games were here. So I went to see Canada and Fiji with my family, and then I was fortunate enough to attend New Zealand, Spain as a guest of World Rugby and the RFU. And they were really very complimentary about the work that York has undertaken to put on that on the campaign, and also really are looking at York as the future for more international sport. So it really has driven participation for rugby for women and girls in York, which is absolutely fantastic. The legacy is super important, but I think we can all agree that we saw some great rugby. We had a great time, and it really added something very special to the city over the summer. So thank you for that.
Don't see any hands. Councillor Rose.
Thank you. It's a question for Jenny, if I may. Let's diversify the answers. Councillor Kent. The question is, and all exec have heard Katie and I talking about how Acomb is the lowest public green space per capita of any ward in the city, and actually one of the lowest in the county. It's great, therefore, to see Viking Road Park on the list of park investment. It's the only proper park, if you like, that we have in our wards. It has brambles growing a good foot to metre each month. It has sinking wooden stepping stones, and the side of the main area falls off every few months. So we do a lot of maintenance, but it'd be good to get proper renovation. I just wanted to get confirmation of how the algorithm works to put it on the list, and confirmation that we can be confident in the things on that list, if that's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rose. So the Parks Investment Fund, I'm really pleased that it's coming forward as quickly as it is. The Scrutiny group that looked at it first, we set out the criteria on which we were weighting allocation, and the highest weight goes to areas of multiple deprivation, which is a weighting of 4. After that is age of play equipment and need of repair. So if it's either failed or according to how old it is, and some of our oldest equipment is 34 years old. I think in Viking Park it's around 15 years old, but lots of it has also, as you say, repeatedly falling apart or being pulled apart and clearly needs attention. After that, we have key infrastructure or repairs. Some of that is footpaths, some of that's actual sort of fencing and different organisations of the layout. And then there's equal weighting at the bottom to retention of or expansion of our green flag status parks, which is a key ambition of ours, to improve that and increase that across the city, and also the availability or existence of third-party funding to either supplement projects which couldn't go ahead otherwise or stand alone. So on that basis, various schemes will put all the areas of CUIC owned parks will put through this, and Viking Park did make the cut. Currently, I'm very confident it will carry on. I mean, I'm hoping that some more schemes might also make the cut, but Viking Park is very definitely on there. And I've got very good news for you, which is that our nascent neighbourhood caretakers team were also out there bramble clearing this morning. So some of that several-year backlog has gone. Not all of it yet, but it's on its way. So all in all, I'm really looking forward to it. But the there'll be an opportunity for you obviously to talk to Dave, me and the project manager once they're appointed to finalise what you actually want to see done in Viking Road. But here's to it. Thank you.
Any supplementary? No. Sorry, Councillor Coles.
I just wanted to ask a supplementary about the neighbourhood caretakers, if that's allowed, given that Councillor Kent referenced it in her answer. I just wondered whether she could say any more about the community caretakers that's been announced this week. It feels like a really big step forward for the city, in particular for our Westfield communities. For me, these feel like community superheroes that will be there out in our communities doing exactly what members of the community want, which is driven by the community and coming from the ground up. I just wondered if she could just set out in a little bit more detail how that's going to work for people in Westfield.
Thank you, Councillor Coles. And I was out with them, with some of them anyway, earlier this week off Cornlands Road when they cleared a whole alleyway, which I think was a bit overgrown and certainly had a lot of litter in it when I arrived and didn't by the time I left. So all of you, I hope we'll look forward to hearing from your ward community information officers at some point in the near future to arrange walkabouts. And they won't all be immediate, but I think the first 4 are being set up as we speak. And that's going to involve ward councillors, it's going to involve housing officers, housing repair teams, and community groups if they wish. But if you think about the areas in your ward, in particular in Westfield, which you think need a special TLC, so this is an add-on service, the core public realm team will carry on doing their sterling work across the city according to prioritised schedules, which they've always done, but this is an add-on to give that local response to address those things which maybe are not prioritised, are too far down the list to be met immediately or even long term, but you really and your neighbourhoods and your community groups want dealt with. So it's a chance for you to input in that, to your residents to input in that, and for this to be dealt with. And that applies to every ward across the city, unless, as I understand, the Liberal Democrats are unhappy with this new arrangement and they decide not to avail themselves of it. But I really hope they don't, because because this is a real benefit for all of our residents, and we want York to look and feel great and for everyone to be happy with it.
Very short supplementary, Lord Mayor. On neighbourhood caretakers, will they fill potholes as promised?
I am sorry that the supplementaries have already been asked. No,
Two
it's one
supplementaries.
for the person who's asked the question and then one for any other member. I do apologise for that. I also apologise to members who haven't had a chance to speak, but we have now concluded the question time and we're going to move on to agenda item 9, the scrutiny report of the chair of the Corporate Scrutiny Committee. And I invite Councillor Fenton, the chair of the Corporate Scrutiny Committee, to move receipt of his report as set out in the council papers.
Formally moved, Deputy Lord Mayor.
May I have a seconder?
Formally second, Lord Mayor.
Does anyone wish to debate the report, or is council happy to agree? I think that sounds as if nobody wants to debate it. Thank you. We'll now move on to the next item, item 10, recommendations of the Audit and Governance Committee. I now invite Councillor Jane Burton to move the recommendations of the Audit and Governance Committee to Council in relation to constitutional changes, updated contract procedure rules and planning committee changes as set out in draft minute 22 of the Audit and Governance Committee meeting held on the 3rd of September 2025 and in the report set out in Council agenda at items 10A and in relation to the Executive Scrutiny Protocol for the City of York Council as set out in draft minute 23 of the Audit and Governance Committee meeting held on the 3rd of September 2025 and in the report set out in the Council agenda at item 10B.
Formally proposed, Lord Mayor.
May I have a seconder to the recommendation? Thank you. I understand that Councillor Fenton wishes to move an amendment to the recommendation set out in minute 23. Councillor Fenton.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So this relates to item 10B. I wasn't sure whether you were taking 10A and then moving on to 10B, but I'll take this opportunity to speak to item 10B. So on page 146 of members' agenda pack, paragraph 13.1, I would like to seek council's permission to move an amendment from the floor for an amendment to be made to paragraph 13.1. It's essentially an oversight. The wording as set out at paragraph 13.1 doesn't reflect the new scrutiny arrangements that have been agreed in relation to the operation of task and finish groups. Essentially, the amendment that I'm seeking council's permission to accept will basically mean that in order to serve on a task and finish group, a member doesn't have to be a member of the parent scrutiny committee, as it were. So the proposed wording, which I shall read out, which would replace the text currently at paragraph 13.1, task groups will be formed to undertake a specific scrutiny review in accordance with the powers conferred by section 21 of the Local Government Act 2000 and will include at least one member of the initiating scrutiny committee. Where possible, task groups will be politically proportionate and aim to have a quorum membership. So that's the revised wording I'm seeking council's permission to agree to. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the amendment?
Seconded, Lord Mayor, formally.
Thank you. Are members happy to agree the amendment? Sorry about that. I now invite debate on the recommendation. Please indicate if you wish to speak, and when called upon, say clearly which recommendation you wish to comment on. Councillor Hollier.
Thank you, Deputy. Speaking on item 10A. So these proposed changes to our planning system strike at the very heart of our local democracy. We've been told this is due to the need to increase officer delegations to speed up the system. However, we are firmly mid-table on all metrics, above average against England on most. We are supposed to believe that York has a special character to be protected, and so surely a greater need for a robust system of accountability than average. We're told that it is to reduce the workload on planning staff, but really we should be deciding what system of accountability we think makes sense for York and then resourcing that department accordingly, not the other way round. We're told now we have a local plan that decisions should be clearer and so less input from members is needed, but the system we have actually rests on the ability of councillors to depart from plan policy because local plan allocations do not go through the processes with the same rigour as full applications, demonstrate the affordable numbers or section 106 agreements in full, etc., that might be a crucial part of that balance. Nonetheless, even if we agreed with this, there still remains the question of how this is balanced with public trust and democratic accountability, or we would simply delegate all decisions. If we are to dramatically reduce the role of elected representatives and the public in decision-making, it needs to be very carefully thought through and implemented, with full consultation with those affected, and we've heard this evening from the public and parishes that they don't feel they have been. The Rainsford Review found public trust in planning has declined, partly because of the drive to marginalise the voice of the public in decision-making, in my view, on the mistaken belief that they are the problem, rather than the reality of the failure to build social housing, infrastructure, or the business practices of the volume house builders. From the expansion of permitted development rights to the future national development management policies, the ability of the public to be involved in planning is being chipped away, and the legitimacy and the trust in the system along with it. The removal of the public's right to have a voice at that point, that many more applications in York are decided, will be extremely divisive and will reinforce the perception that decisions are being made behind closed doors. And so, these proposals will fail on their own terms, because fewer applications coming to committee will not mean less resistance, it will mean more. Communities that feel shut out of the planning process will push back harder against development in their area. That delays rather than speeds up the delivery of homes. Having said all that, it is clear the government is unfortunately intent on reducing the role of democratic engagement planning committees, Angela Rayner, before her ousting, stated this would happen next year. The latest government draft is at odds with the suggested changes being proposed by the council. Our always delegate is going way above the government proposals. Current suggestion is basically anything that doesn't involve more than 40 houses. This is far, far too broad. There is no clear indication of the scale of commercial industrial development to be considered by committee. It seems pointless us deciding all our delegations only for the government to impose a new set over us in a matter of months, which will potentially involve rolling back those we have implemented ourselves. So we've had this planning system of planning for many years. Changing it should need wider consensus, both political and public. This is the wrong change at the wrong time, made in the wrong way. If we want to build trust, if we want to deliver homes, and we want to stand up for local democracy, then we must reject these proposals. Thank you.
Councillor Vassey.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to just take a different approach to cover the same subjects in 10A. Hey, come in. Do you want a cup of tea? Yeah, wow, what happened to you? Oh, just a problem with that planning committee. What do you mean? Oh, they overturned officer recommendations. Again, second or third time this year. It's upsetting the team and it's just not right. Oh, yeah, I heard about that. That listed building in the city centre someone wants to turn into a bookshop. Yeah, that one. One of your lot called it in. The recommendation was refuse, and they all ignored it. It was willful. Someone told me that no one outside the City Council opposed the plans. The conservation groups, the Civic Trust, and that's not the point. We are the professionals. They're just busybodies, like parish councils. It was the same earlier this year about those windows on the building in Oglethorpe. They let the Minster off the hook. We can't have local politicians making decisions like this. Oh, so what should we do about it? Ah, well, I was thinking the government review might enable us to scrap the planning committee. Problem sorted.
Point of order, Lord Mayor.
I'm talking to the issue.
This strikes me as a slanderous imaginary scenario of a member of this council that is not based in reality in any way, but named the individual and seems to be suggesting some sort of kind of corruption. Is this allowed in the rules? Deputy Lord Mayor, apologies.
I'm simply expressing myself in a different way to the usual.
It was the use of the name Johnny specifically that was what I was referring to, Councillor Vassey.
May I continue, Lord Mayor? I'm halfway through.
I'm just going to ask you all to be nice. And I'm going to pass this over to the monitoring officer just for clarification.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. So as with public participation comments, comments made by members should not be defamatory or should not attack officers. I appreciate the point that you're trying to make, Councillor, but I think you are potentially straying towards calling into question the professionalism of qualified officers, and that is a dangerous line to go to.
If I may continue, Lord Mayor, I'm making similar points to the previous speaker, but I hope I'm doing it in a different way so that we're all hearing what's being said. So I just ended on, we might scrap the planning committee. Can we do that? Well, you're the politicians, you decide. On what grounds? Saving money and resources. Planning committees and calling things in slows everything down. Call it improving efficiency. Besides, you lot don't have any parish councils to worry about, do you? True, but if it's just about time and money, people could use that to scrap elections. That's not right, is it? Of course, I'm just saying it's your choice. Planning committees received specific training that told them not to ignore officer recommendations but they just don't listen. Look, at the same time you make the changes, you can agree to let officers make the historic conservation decisions without interference, scrap development of under 40 houses to any committee, and what? As our response to the government review, even though it hasn't even come to a conclusion, hasn't the Planning Advisory Service specifically told councils not to jump the gun? No, you're all right. It'll show we're proactive and engaged and earn us brownie points. Oh, so then ward councillors won't be able to waste time bringing stuff to committees, and the conservation lobby won't be able to bend
20
people's ears,
seconds.
and no one will have to listen to parish councils. Exactly. And that'll get more homes built more quickly. Don't know, that's up to developers, but it might. Oh, okay, that sounds reasonable. Let's do that. And what I'm saying, Lord Mayor, is that this is how democracy can fail.
Thank you, Councillor Vassey.
Thank you.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm not sure I entirely followed Councillor Vassey. I think he might have better next time with a ventriloquist dummy on one arm to do the role play, because I did find it a bit confusing. It was a bit beyond me. Just on 10B, if we're taking things from the floor, on the task group says they should be politically proportionate. Well, we do, of course, have proportionate committees politically, which basically means if applied to task groups, the Conservatives would have about 1 in 3, whereas at the moment we are invited to be on essentially every task group, which is above the, and I do welcome that. I think that's really good and really appreciate it, and hope we make a positive difference. But I just question use the word proportionate, because I think that would change it. If we said something like politically balanced or from across the parties, I think that'll be better. On 10A, we're probably somewhere in the middle in terms of, we do think that some of the changes should be happening, that the bar of 40 houses seems very high. I would like to think that, particularly in the rural areas, less or fewer than 40 houses would frequently be something that can go to committee. I appreciate why certain times a low number wouldn't need to and everything like that. But also the things that do go to planning committee now that shouldn't, when they're just non-controversial as well. I think the Lib Dems can be a bit too strong in some of the terminology. We're currently on a line of 100% of planning applications, and the first 95% don't go to committee, and we're not outraged about that. It's where you draw the line. I think Labour are taking the line too far that way. Lib Dems, why don't we go back to 0%, 1%, and why don't we have every single thing go to a committee, so we can have planning committee look at a kitchen extension or every tree that gets chopped down. So there's a middle ground. I did watch the Audit and Governance. I couldn't watch it at the time, but I watched it later. Councillor Rose made the point that Conservatives were not there, and therefore we must have no issues. I'm sorry to say, just because we're not in the room doesn't mean we're supporting everything you're doing. Otherwise, we really would be a bit flat out. So we don't support this change in terms of it just goes too far, and I think obviously what the government may or may not do, and also from the point of view of constitutional governance changes like this should be very much cross-party, should be agreed as one. I don't think this sort of thing should go through on a narrow majority. And I don't think we should have an Audit and Governance Committee that is absolutely split down party lines on this sort of issue. So that's why we'll be opposing it.
If I may give a very brief point of clarity, what I said on Audit and Governance was that the Conservatives were aware it was coming to committee and had the opportunity to raise objections to A and G and had chosen not to. Thank you.
I will just remind you that we are trying to be nice to each other. Councillor Pavlovic.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. And I'd also like to thank all the contributors to this debate. And I hate to have to say this, but with the exception of Councillor Vassey, a councillor for whom I have a great deal of respect, which I lost a lot of today because I feel that he completely, in his inimitable way of trying to be different, actually did stray into questioning the both members and the officers in the planning department. But I'd also like to counter some of the arguments against this proposal. Firstly, that the council is acting prematurely in presenting these now rather than waiting for the government to make changes to the planning regime. There's no timeline for this, nor indeed any clarity on which, if any, of the options being considered around the powers of delegation will be brought forward. Incidentally, all 3 of the options being consulted on are far in excess of the constitutional changes we are proposing, which include that only applications which vary from the adopted local plan or neighbourhood plan approved sites are eligible for consideration by committee, with all other applications delegated by default. That all post-permission changes are delegated, including all reserved matters. What is being proposed is far from this. The parish councils are already consulted on applications as defined by the Town and Country Planning Act 1980. And even if we wanted to exclude parish councils, which we don't, then the law wouldn't allow us to. Parish councils already comment on applications both in favour and against, and this will not change. Applications not in compliance with the approved local plan, particularly if in the defined green belt, still have to meet the criteria set down in the NPPF and can still be called in. None of this is changing. What the local plan does is set certainty around development sites. But the planning process also has to be ready to respond to the already increasing pace of applications coming in, not least due to the time limits imposed by the planning authority to determine applications or risk having to return planning fees. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Some years ago, we adopted a parish charter. And that parish charter states, and I read it directly, City of York Council will aim to give local council the opportunity to comment before making a decision which affects the local community. Now, these changes fundamentally will affect the ability of parish councils to come and attend meetings. They have no protected right to attend and give their views. The fact is that a lot of the applications on which parish council would like to speak a committee will no longer go there. Now, I think the gentleman from Rufford and Napton Parish Council hit the nail on the head when he pointed out that 40 houses or so in somewhere like Huntington may not be a big deal and won't change the demographics and the way the actual community works. But in somewhere like Merton, Holtby, Askham Richard, the smaller communities, it will have a catastrophic effect on that community in some cases. Furthermore, when we actually look at this, it says that outline applications for 40 dwellings or more will go to committee. Well, actually, outline applications, the principle of development is already set out in the local plan. So they're far less important. What is more important is to get the reserve matters ones, which is where the nuts and bolts of the actual application are tied down to decide exactly how it will affect the community, the design and the layout of the roads. That's where local knowledge, local member knowledge really does make a difference. Planning officers, many of them may not know the areas as well as the local members. And it's critical that we have local members' involvement in that. Now, I don't suggest that Councillor Watson and I will remember way back in 1987, every single application that had an objection came before a committee to be decided by councillors. Now, that is nonsense. That was going far over the top. But the simple fact is, members should make decisions whenever possible. And this is being taken away from members. It's an abuse of local democracy. Parish council were not consulted. I know Councillor Revilius did tell one of her parish councils 2 days before. I told mine 2 days before, but it was already too late for them to register to speak at Audit and Governance. Many of them would have done so. If we're going to push this through now, we might as well tear up the parish charter, because quite frankly, it is not worth the paper it is written on. We are treating our parishes with contempt. Thank you.
Just a point of order, Deputy Lord Mayor. Could the monitoring officer just confirm, my understanding as the planning committee chair is that there are no current protected rights for parish councillors to speak at planning committee, nor are they statutory consultees, although we do consult them routinely. Furthermore, any parish councillor can feed into any application, either as an individual or on behalf of the parish council, I believe. Could you just confirm that all of that is correct?
Yes, Councillor, I can.
Councillor Hook.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I wasn't actually planning to speak, but I thought I'd better.
all the planning, parish councils in rural West York have one very important power. I or Councillor Knight attend parish council meetings and we listen. And if there is a concern of any parish councillor or group of parish councils about a planning application, we will call it in if we agree. We listen to them, and that is their important power. If we can no longer call in that application, then the parish councils have lost their power and we have lost that power.
Thank you. Councillor Crawshaw.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm hearing an awful lot of nonsense, I have to say. The Planning Committee's remit is to determine applications within the legislative framework. It's a regulatory committee. We are expected as members to act within that legislative framework in the way that it asks us to do so, and we do that on the professional advice of planning officers and solicitors. We hear too often that people think that the only time when people can contribute to a planning committee is at the planning committee hearing. It's the only way that the public can have their say, and that is absolutely nonsense. In fact, it's often, as we all know, usually far too late by that point, because planning committees essentially have a binary choice. It is the application as we see it before us that we are determining, and we can't say, oh, we like this bit, or we like that bit, or we don't like this bit, or we don't like that bit. Whereas if you feed in during the consultation process, you have the opportunity to raise the issues, to bring the planning officer's attention to things and ask them to have a conversation with the applicant around the ways in which they can meet the local plan, a neighbourhood plan, the NPPF, and still get a development that's acceptable. That's what the legislation tells us we have to do. So I want to just squash this notion around call-ins that's been repeated here several times over. The current situation as we have it at this council is that you have to give planning grounds to be able to call an application in. But that is rarely enforced. It is opaque as to who determines whether correct planning grounds have been given or not. There is no paper trail to that. And by default, what we end up with is an awful lot of nonsense coming through to committee that then just goes with the recommendation of the officer anyway, because we all knew in advance that that was what the legislation told us that we were going to have to do. What we're seeking to do with these proposals is give some clarity so that we don't end up with nonsense applications that are only coming to committee because they've met a particular threshold, or because arbitrarily it's over a certain number of dwellings or under or whatever. But also it gives clarity to that call-in process so that where there are genuine planning grounds, they can be assessed. We can then see whether there's a reasonable chance of a committee coming to a different determination than the officer has said within the planning framework. And then that will come to committee and will be heard just like any other hearing. That's exactly as it should be. But I think this language that's being used around democratic deficit or abuse of democracy and keeping the public out of things, it's actually really dangerous and irresponsible, because we all see what is happening at the moment in our city and nationally around the language that's used around politicians. That is not what is happening here. What we are seeking to do here is give clarity to the planning process so that committees are focused on the strategic, clear decisions, or where there is within the planning balance a degree of balance that needs to be determined. It's not a straightforward case. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Orrell.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Like Councillor Hook, I wasn't going to speak on this issue, but one aspect seems to have been missed in the debate. Councillor Vassie alluded to it in the refusal for the application for the former, what was it, the former, yeah, indeed. But there's more to it than that. There are many applications that come to committee that are improved at committee by the input of local residents. Not every local resident is looking at lamp posts all the time to see when there's an application in their area. Sometimes the lamp posts aren't near enough to them if they're in the wrong part of the cul-de-sac. We had an item at Planning B last week where there was a public speaker came to to speak on an issue that we all thought, or at least most of us thought, had come to committee because it was a council application. It looked straightforward. He spoke to the committee, outlined the flaw in the application, and then the committee discussed it and improved the application. That would have not happened under this system, and that happens regularly. Things come to committee, sometimes they're deferred and come back as better applications. We're ignoring that aspect and keeping many people out of the planning system. If we do this, many residents will feel aggrieved at what happens. They'll feel aggrieved that they haven't had their fair share in the situation, and they'll then go away, as people have said, disillusioned with our democratic process. And they'll not just be disillusioned with your group, it will be all of us. And where will they go then?
Thank you. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I also wasn't going to speak on this, but I feel like someone else has to point out to all the councillors in this room something which I became very aware of when I first came to sit on a planning committee, which is that planning committees are not places to march your political colours. They're places where members from all parties come together to support the council in its work of deciding planning applications within the legal framework that we all work within. The reality is that legal framework itself is not democratic. We can't say, oh, we don't want to follow this bit of the planning framework today, we don't like it very much. And we've all sat there, I would imagine, in applications. I can think of one that really hurt me recently where we say, I really want to see this application work, for example, or pass or not pass. But what I want doesn't matter because we work within a legal framework. Now, the idea that councillors can sit in those meetings and say, oh, actually, I think we should have a bit more of this or a bit less of this is just fundamentally not how planning works. And I think that's a really important point. The other thing that I think everybody who's ever sat on a planning committee for very long will have experienced is, regardless of the fact that planning is not supposed to be political, there are call-ins that I and many fellow members will have sat through and been completely confused as to why that application has been called in if it wasn't for a political reason. The reality is, at the moment, the way the call-in system works means that if you want to make a certain group of people in your ward really happy, if you want to, make sure that you've got the backing of a certain council or a certain group who really oppose an application, even if you fundamentally know that that application is going to either go through or not go through because of the legal framework that we work within, you can call it in, and then you can look like you're doing a great job of representing your residents while all the time fully understanding how the planning committee has to work. And the point of these changes is to make sure that that political use is not there, and to make sure that planning applications are called in when there is a real reason for that committee to sit. For example, when that balance is unsure, when how that planning application sits within that legislation isn't clear. We have all seen those applications as well. Those committees are really important, but the way we protect their importance and protect the sanity of our officers is to not abuse them for our own political gain. And that is what these changes is ring fencing, basically, and I fully support that.
Thank you. Councillor Eyre.
Very briefly in response to that, planning is not black and white. Most decisions we make in planning is a planning balance, and we as members are elected to use our knowledge and knowledge of the planning system and the area to weigh that balance. And that's the point that my members are making. I don't like the inference that people are predetermined or voting at planning on a political thing. Councillor Crawshaw is very adamant that that shouldn't be suggested in this chamber, but we are elected to weigh the balance. And that can weigh very differently depending on people's personal views, people's political views, etc. We've all seen planning applications that have gone one way or the other depending on the political balance of the committee. That's not because people voted politically, that's not because of their ideology, not because they were predetermined, just different people have different views, and that's what my members are trying to protect. But what I actually wanted to speak to was the earlier point, I think it's point of order. Councillor Crawshaw suggested that parish councils are not statutory consultees, and that was confirmed by the monitoring officer. I'm of the belief that parish councils are statutory consultees on things in their local area, and it's in the legislation, so I'm quite happy to share that.
We've got a proposal to move to the vote. Is there a seconder? Do I have to give? Councillor Burton, you do have a right of reply if you would like to take it.
Very briefly, Deputy Lord Mayor. There seems to have been a lot of misinformation around these proposals. We debated it thoroughly at Audit and Governance because we wanted to be clear ourselves that there was no hit to democracy, which we were thoroughly convinced that there was not going to be a hit on democracy. It's been debated tonight, and we've been reassured that what's going through is a democratic process. There will be able to be call-ins, and it will be reviewed in a year's time. So I'm proposing that we formally accept this.
I will now take a vote on the recommendations. All those wishing to vote for the recommendation. Sorry, I missed that. What
could you wish to propose a named vote on this, please?
This is the main vote. What? But
yeah, we can do a named vote. That's fine.
Oh, sorry.
You'll need
I do apologise.
You need 3 people to request that. What is the rules?
The rules say we need 3 members to request a named vote.
So that's fine.
That's quite a lot.
Lord Mayor, just for clarity, is this 10A only? Or are we taking them both together?
It is both together.
Well, can I request we take separate votes, as they're clearly very different issues?
That would be a request to council, and then council would decide whether or not we split the vote. So we have had a proposal to split the vote. Do we have a seconder?
Okay.
All those in favour?
Favour.
Thank you very much. All those against?
Oh, 23. Councillor Rose, are you voting? Yeah.
Any abstentions?
3. Wow. It's 20 each then. Which means it's down to your casting vote.
Okay.
20.
That's 20 in favour, 20 against, and 3 abstentions. Members, I am going to use my casting vote and vote against. Thank you. We will now take a vote on the recommendations, both of them. Please. So, just a moment. When your name is called, please say whether or not you're voting for, against, or abstaining on the recommendations.
Okay, Councillor Eyre.
I have absolutely nothing against the scrutiny protocol, but unfortunately I'm forced to vote against.
Councillor Baxter.
For.
Councillor Burton.
Which one?
Ben
B.
Burton, sorry.
For.
Councillor Jane Burton.
For.
Councillor Tony Clark.
For.
Councillor Joe Cole.
For.
Councillor Crawshaw.
For.
Councillor Cullick. Councillor Cullick. Sorry, can we be clear? Councillor Culwick. Councillor Cuthbertson.
Against.
Councillor Douglas.
For.
Councillor Fenton.
With a very heavy heart because of the amount of work I put into the executive scrutiny protocol, against.
Councillor Fisher.
With a very heavy heart against the planning, but against the whole thing.
Councillor Healy.
Against.
Councillor Hollier.
Against.
Councillor Hook.
Against.
Councillor Kent.
For.
Councillor Kilban.
For.
Councillor Knight.
Against.
Councillor Lomas.
For.
Councillor Mason.
Against.
Councillor Melly.
For.
Councillor Merritt.
For.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Nelson.
For.
Sorry, Councillor Nichols.
Against 10A.
Councillor Orrell.
Against.
Councillor Pavlovic.
For.
Villiers.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Rowley is with apologies. Councillor Runciman. Councillor Smalley.
Against.
Councillor Steels Walshaw.
For.
Councillor Stewart.
Well done to Labour 3. What an absolute joke that 20 forced through this and vote on two totally separate things. I'm coming to that point. Well, I will answer if I'm not heckled. So just have a bit of quiet. So I say well done to Labour 3. What a disgrace from Labour 20 against.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
For.
Councillor Bassey.
In bewilderment that it came to this, against.
Councillor Waller.
Against 10A.
Councillor Wan.
Against.
Councillor Watson.
Against.
Councillor Wardby. Apologies, sorry. Councillor Webb.
For.
Councillor Wells.
For.
Councillor Whitcroft.
For.
Councillor Williamson.
Against.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
Members, It's 24 in favour and 20 against. I'm sure that we could all do with a break at this time. So I'm going to call a 10-minute break. Please be back in your seats at 9:10. Thank you. The meeting is about to recommence. Members, I would like to remind you of the timings. The guillotine will fall. Thank you, councillor. Members, the guillotine will fall at 9:40. The meeting will finish at 9:50. We will now move on to the next item on the agenda. Item 12, appointments and changes to membership. Do I have council's agreement? Oh, sorry. I'm just too eager. Item 11, publication of members' addresses. I now invite Councillor Douglas to move the recommendations in relation to the publication of members' addresses as set out in the report at pages 174 and 175 of the council papers.
Moved, Lord Mayor. Deputy Lord Mayor, sorry.
May I have a seconder?
Formally second, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Does anybody wish to debate the proposal? Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I mean, the first point I'd make is that I don't see why things like this come to council without any sort of cross-party involvement beforehand. This could have easily just been flagged up by group leaders, and I'm sure it would have been easily resolved. I don't really doubt it's going to go through as item C, but you know, my view would be to go for item A. There's two places where you can have your address, which is on the first councillor page when you see your name, committees, and everything like this. All this talks about is the register of interest. So my view would be that members should be able to have it on the first page if they want. It's there, everybody can see it. If they don't want to have it, no issue whatsoever. I will never make anything of it at all. But if we're only going to be having it on the register of interest, we're presumably not going to be having it on the first page. And people that want it on the first page won't then have it. And any member of the public who wants to get in touch with the councillor who's perfectly happy to have their address there will be expected to dig around on the register of interest, which makes no sense whatsoever. So I very much favour the first option A, which is opt-in. If people want it on the front page, absolutely fine. If they want it in the register of interest, absolutely fine. If they don't, they don't. I certainly don't think anybody can vote for B because that would just be tarring, or and that would be putting everybody in exactly the same forced position. But I don't see the logic of C and essentially taking away addresses for everybody, because if it's off the register of interest, it's certainly going to be off the front page.
Thank you. Councillor Fenton.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. I'm supportive of the proposed option C. I think that the ability will remain for councillors to declare their home address publicly on the website if they choose to do so. One question I've got is in relation to other properties a member may have a share of ownership in, which currently would be listed under, I think on the register of interest, it's item 5, land licenses and corporate tenancies. I'm just not clear whether the option 3 approach would apply just to the councillor's primary address, or whether it would capture other properties that the council has an interest in, which would be at the moment listed under item 5 on the register of interest. It'd be helpful if someone could provide some clarity on that, please.
Thank you. Councillor Kilbane. Sorry.
So just to provide clarity on that, councillor, my advice would be that because the address is connected to you, it would be covered by the sensitive interest that you are declaring, and therefore all addresses that you owned or had an interest in would be redacted. and then you would choose to whether or not you had your home address somewhere. That would then mean that no address that you were connected with could, for example, be attacked, which is the whole point of this.
Councillor Kilbane.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. We'll be voting for option C on this as a Labour group. I hear what Councillor Stewart is saying, but what we're talking about here is the safety of elected representatives, and it certainly feels as though our safety is under more threat than it previously has been, and I don't think it's something to be pernickety with. I think we have to take the safest option that we possibly can, and for us that will be option C.
Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify our position, as Councillor Fenton said before the question, we're 100% supportive of that particular thing as it was written in the paper. I think this is an extension in terms of investment properties, etc. I can see a case where in certain circumstances, councillors' other property should be exempted, and we have protocols and processes in place that allow that to happen. I don't think that needs to happen primarily by default. If somebody has a lot of property interests, that is not necessarily putting those properties at risk. So I don't agree that that one in particular should be a default removal. It should be at the monitoring officer's discretion in discussion with councillors if they believe that a specific issue arises. So unfortunately, I think we'll have to abstain on this issue.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, were you? Councillor Healy.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. So, point of clarity from the monitoring officer. I currently own an office building from when I used to have my own company. So, from the changes that we're making today, myself and anyone who owns a business premises, of which I include the houses that are now registered as businesses, they wouldn't need to be written down.
So you would declare them on your register of interest, and then they would be redacted on that register of interest. So you would still declare your interest in them, and then in the event that an application is being considered somewhere which directly affects that interest, you would declare you have a sensitive interest and leave the meeting.
I can't see any other hands. No. Right, the recommendation is option C. Can we have a vote on that, please? We'll do it with a show of hands. All those in favour of option C? Thank you, members. All those against? Thank you.
No.
All those abstaining? That's 24 for accepting recommendation C, 2 against, 18 abstentions. Option C is adopted. We now move on to the next item, item 12, appointments and changes to membership. Do I have council's agreement to note the appointments and changes to membership set out in the council's agenda? No. Councillor Eyre.
Thank you, Chair. York's libraries are at the heart of our communities, places for learning, opportunity and connection. At the very moment, Labour is pushing through £600,000 of cuts heavily criticised by our own internal auditors. The choice of who represents this council on Explore York has never mattered more. And the choice before us today, a man whose background is not in libraries or culture, but 30 years in investment banking. Someone with no track record of defending or delivering cultural or community services. No matter what this nominee's qualifications are or how they would perform in the role, residents are asking us clear questions. Would he have still been in the running for consideration if he had not donated over £55,000 to Labour here in York, £10,000 to the Labour group's own coffers? How independent can an individual with such strong ties to a political group
Point of order,
be?
Lord Mayor. This feels very, very defamatory towards an individual who is named in public papers.
It's public information.
Public information.
But the inference of what you're saying for a voluntary position is quite...
I'm repeating questions being asked by residents, Councillor Crawshaw. I'm allowed to do that one. Finishing as I will, I've not much more to say. The Prime Minister, the former Deputy Prime Minister and other Labour members nationally have shown shockingly poor judgment of late. We would urge you locally not to fall into the same trap. We would therefore request, and I suspect this may be a forlorn hope after the nonsense we've just had, for a separate vote on this particular nomination, so we don't have to cast any aspersions on Councillor Clark and his potential contribution in his particular role. And for these reasons, we will be voting against this particular appointment, and we strongly urge all members to do the same.
Thank you. Councillor Smalley.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Reading this paper, I felt quite cold, to be honest, because I know sort of obviously when we're shuffling the deck chairs between councillors on various CYC appointments, yeah, it's insert name here, but when somebody like Chris Edwards has given so much to the city, I think it is worthy that rather than a single line, there's a bit more of a blurb about quite what he's contributed. During my 4 years as a cabinet member, Chris Edwards was chair of York Explore and a really critical friend and uncompromising in his support of York's libraries. As well as chair of the board, he also oversaw a recruitment process for a new chief executive, oversaw the opening of new libraries in the city and many, many such activities that, you know, which is why we like Explore and the work they do, and why so many residents write to us when they hear that they're under threat from the Labour administration. Well as Explore, Chris has contributed to the city in his role as the chair of REACH, the Cultural Education Partnership. He was Chancellor of the Leeds Children's University for 4 years. He was Chief Executive of Education Leeds, and then before that, for 5 years, Director of Education at City of York Council. He has given so much to the city, not just in those roles, but also as a parish councillor. And I think it is very much worth, if the leader of the council hasn't already, to write to Chris Edwards thanking him for his service to York Explore, but also to the rest of the city. The administration chose not to have a cross-party recruitment process for the chair of York Explore. Nonetheless, if Mr. Trotter is accepted by council this evening, he has extremely big shoes to fill.
Thank you. Councillor Kilbane.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor, and I would agree with that, Councillor Smalley, but I must stress that Chris Edwards isn't retiring. He's not hanging up his clogs just yet. He still remains very active in REACH, and we work with him very closely, and will continue to do so. And we're very, very grateful for him for all the work that he's done at York Explore over the years, not just his expertise, but his passion. Just to correct you, Councillor Smalley, the nomination from the City of York Council onto the board of Explore is not automatically the chair. Explore has a chair that the directors elect, and of course, as I'm sure everybody on the Liberal Democrat benches know, when somebody is made a director of a company, their fiduciary duty is to that company. In many respects, with the appointment that we're putting forward, we are putting forward somebody who will work to the utmost to the benefit of York Explore. I take great exception to the implication that this is somehow a dodgy deal. So let's just be absolutely right on this. This nominee has been totally open and transparent in terms of political affiliations and any donations. That's all out there for public knowledge. They are taking on a voluntary role, working for the good of the libraries, bringing their valuable expertise and experience to that job.
We need to make savings at the libraries. They're the only part of the council that wasn't touched during the last sort of 15 years of austerity. And I would much rather make those savings by generating funds than by having to make cuts. Now, this nominee is the person who can raise those funds because his huge expertise of taking small organisations that weren't producing much revenue and turning them into revenue-raising behemoths. Now, I absolutely take issue with the slander that is being thrown here today. When we talk about bringing politics into disrepute, when we talk about putting people off, it's exactly this kind of politics that does that. It's exactly this kind of mudslinging that does that. No wonder successful business people try to avoid politics when we need to be bringing them into it. We face out there a common enemy. The right wing is on the march. It is organising and it is looking to take us down. We need to be uniting in this hall, not throwing mud at each other.
Councillor Healy.
Thank you very much, Deputy Lord Mayor. Could Councillor Kilbane inform this council how many people were approached to fill this role and how many people were interviewed to fill this role?
Actually, we asked this person to take on this role because of the expertise that they bring. So this one person was our nominee. If you want to sling mud about that, feel free, but people are really fed up with this distasteful politics that you insist on pursuing.
Move to the vote, Deputy Lord Mayor.
We did request a separate vote, Lord Mayor.
Councillor Vassey.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think all of us would agree that politics is about perception, how things are perceived, how the public looks at the way decisions are made. And it's incumbent on all of us to be aware of that all the time. When I'm in my ward and someone who owns a coffee shop invites me in to talk about a problem they have and offer me a cup of coffee, I say, no, I'm not taking a cup of coffee, because the public perception of even taking a cup of coffee can be twisted against any one of us. We all know that to be true. We all take care to avoid that, I think. This issue isn't about Mr. Trotter, it's about the administration's approaching him. It's not a slander on him, it's a reflection on the decision that a post of that importance should be given to someone who clearly has political links with the people appointing him. And that's the point that we're trying to raise here. And I think the public will look upon it with great amount of suspicion. It would be wiser not to go down that path. And given what's just been said, you know, if we're trying to avoid the public looking at us and seeing us in a bad light, we should all make an effort to avoid this kind of potential public perception problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crawshaw.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Of course, public perception is shaped by the people who put out press releases linking and making slanderous and scandalous comments. So I think that it is a bit rich of you to sit here and talk about public perception when you are the people seeking to drive a narrative that is linking somebody who is a businessman, who is a volunteer, doing a voluntary role for the good of the city, who will nevertheless, as Councillor Kilbane has pointed out, have a legal position where his, sorry, I can't remember the word for it. You know, he will be obliged to act in the best interest of Explore, not anything else. But this is somebody with expertise in taking these sorts of businesses and finding ways of helping them to generate revenue. This is a good thing for the city. It is something that nobody would have noticed had you not have put out a public press release that made these slanderous and unsubstantiated slurs on an individual who is named in a public meeting. I think you need to think about what you are part of, and Councillor Cobain is absolutely right, the far right is on the rise in our city and nationally. We know that to be the case. Everybody looking around the city can see that. One cursory look on Facebook can see that. We've just had a vote on having to remove our public addresses from the public sphere because people's names and addresses are being published publicly on forums with people saying, kill this MP, or let's take a violent approach. And you are feeding part of that by suggesting that there is scandal and something to be seen here when that is absolutely not the case. And it is no wonder that people don't want to come anywhere near this sort of politics.
Move to the vote.
I'm going to just pass over to the monitoring officer.
So for clarity, members, of the three changes that are listed in item 12, the first item related to the Health and Wellbeing Board and the third item relating to York Museums Trust are group nominations. As such, they are out with council's power to change because the council has a duty to put into effect group nominations. Therefore, they are for noting. That leaves us with the item relating to explore. That is the only item that will be up for a vote.
We'll now move to the vote on the issue of explore. All those in favour of the appointment, please raise your hand.
Yeah. 24 in favour.
Thank you, members. All those against?
And that's 20 against.
Any sorry, thank you very much. Any abstentions? That's 24 votes for and 20 against. Thank you, members. Right. We're now 15 minutes before the guillotine. We'll move on to motions, item 13. We can, I now invite Councillor Stewart to move for the first motion regarding planning process improvements.
Thanks, Deputy Lord Mayor. I think the motion is quite self-explanatory. There's 4 points to it. To review the existing S106 money and what's not spent. I appreciate there is already work ongoing about that, and obviously that will build on that. Secondly, to ensure that we better consult with recipients potentially of S106 money. It's been notable at Planning Committee a few times that enormous organisations like the NHS have not responded when we're talking about the difference between a development giving £1 million or circa that to the NHS or not. We can't just have those sort of things not happening. I appreciate that may well be the inefficiency of the NHS in not responding, but we need to get that done. Thirdly, to consult ward members on S106 agreements. Consult is a very, very open word. We have a formal consultation process for starting a new pharmacy. We have a formal consultation process for home to school transport. I could consult somebody on what I should have for dinner tomorrow night. It doesn't have to be anything set. It is just about saying there's an S106 agreement. This is what's happening. What do you think? The ward member then gets the chance to feed in some of their local expertise. I can't think of anything anybody would have to fear from that. And fourthly, to ensure that S106s are more effectively enforced and monitored. Numerous examples of this, but for example, in my ward, Copmanthorpe, there was a Tadcaster Road corner site, and the section 106 said all traffic must not go through the village. It said that they gave the hours of working and all sorts of things like that, and that was basically just ignored by the site developers. They didn't expect anybody to particularly be bothered, and I sat on certain mornings outside the development. The peak was 6 wagons coming all the way through the village, 2 of them parked up on the pavement, all of them well before the working hours. I spoke to the wagon drivers about the fact they weren't allowed through the village. They said that was totally news to them. They even showed me the section, one of them in their notes for where it would be if there are any special requirements. There were 2-inch square plastic signs saying only go right, don't go through the village. Total complacency because developers don't believe it's enforced. It was only me getting involved that got that situation changed. So hopefully it's a non-controversial motion which we can agree on. There is an amendment I know proposed. I'd happily take the first and third parts of it. The second one intrinsically changes the meaning of the motion, and therefore I certainly wouldn't take that. But I hope, although obviously it's an absolutely forlorn hope given what we've seen tonight, the mover of the amendment will withdraw the second point.
Thank you. May I have a seconder?
Seconded. Reserve the right to speak later.
Notice has been received of an amendment to the motion as set out in the supplementary papers. I now invite Councillor Ben Burton to move the amendment to the motion.
Yeah, thank you. Keep this brief. Mostly wanted to thank Councillor Stewart for bringing this forward. It's a motion that we can mostly support, and there's lots of value in it. There is lots of changes going on in the planning system at the moment, and as you'll see, we've actually added to this in terms of that strength of feeling for wanting to make sure that Section 106s are well used. But what we've done is just made some amendments to make this actually fit with what's going on at the moment. So there is already a review of Section 106 ongoing at the moment. And we encourage people to join in with supporting that and involving themselves in it. The point that you've raised, I mean, first of all, that anecdote was around planning conditions and construction management plans, which aren't Section 106s, but it was a good amendment nonetheless. But the bit in relationship to it, specifically the reason why we can't agree to join up on this is the fact that the head of planning has raised the fact that this is, councillors can't be consulted in the drafting of Section 106s. And as it's been raised already, that's already been raised at CSMC and discussed at length and highlighted there that it can't be done. So whilst I understand why you'd want that to be the case, at the moment the advice is that we can't, so we can't support the amendment as it's written. But as you've seen, we have amended the way that we're undertaking a review, and we've changed the name of our local plan working group to a planning policy group. So there's lots of opportunities in the way that scope's changed for input into the planning process in future that wasn't there before. So I'd encourage you to pick that up going forward there instead. Thanks.
May I have a seconder? Councillor Pavlovic.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'm not going to flog this. The motion we've got no problem with. Section 106 needs to have a more transparent process. The only reason that we can't agree with the motion as it's written is that there is no ground to consult on Section 106s, not least because Section 106s are, by their very nature, covering potentially a multiplicity of wards, and they are many and varied. What we want to do is to allow ward councillors to identify what their ward priorities are to the relevant officers, who will then feed in as their part of the consultation with the planners, who are the only people who can set the Section 106, to then identify those 106s. So I'm going to leave it there. We support the whole principle of a more transparent Section 106 policy.
The guillotine has now fallen. Councillor Eyre.
Lord Mayor, in support of Councillor Baxter and the fantastic work she's done, can I move under Section 9.3 of the Constitution that we take the additional 30 minutes and lift the guillotine?
That I understand that should have happened earlier.
Oh, seriously. In which case, Lord Mayor, can I move suspension of standing order that refers to the wording, which will now have to review audit and governance, because nobody apart from the monitoring officer knows at what point the guillotine falls. And yes, the wording does technically say before the guillotine has fallen.
Point of order, the Deputy Lord Mayor said very clearly what time the guillotine would fall and what time the meeting would close earlier, about 20 minutes ago, half an hour ago.
I could get into a discussion about whether that's accurate or not, but I'm still moving suspension of that particular standing order then to allow the guillotine to be removed, so we get to debate both Councillor Baxter's motion and Councillor Healy's motion.
Can we have a seconder for that? Now we take a vote. All those in favour of suspending standing orders?
Twenty in favour.
All those against? Yeah.
Are you voting?
Yes, I will.
That's 24 against.
That's 20 in favour and 24 against. I'm very sorry, Councillor Rao. The amendment has been moved and seconded, so we will now take a vote on the amendments. All those in favour?
Point of order?
Yes, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, Deputy. It's just the way that if people say things in this chamber confidently enough, it's assumed to be accurate. So my motion has been approved by the council's legal officer, who saw no objection to it whatsoever, as perfectly valid. It's absolute nonsense. You can't consult on a section 106. You can. You don't have to take the view of the person you consult. It's just not the.
Can I ask what the point of order is?
Well, I'll repeat it very happily, but we're just we're being told this by Councillor Burton and Councillor Pavlovic that you can't consult on an S106. You can. You absolutely can. Give me anything where you say you can't, because other authorities, they do. Okay, what you can't do is you can't have ward priorities in the section 106. Ward priority is just preference. A section 106 is purely about mitigation of the development, and that can only be relevant and only be judged when you know what the development is, not some vague hope at the outset. It's an absolute nonsense. It's been fully approved as legal and valid. So the only reason voting against this is you don't want that openness. Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you. We will now take a vote on accepting the amendment. All those in favour of accepting the amendment?
Yeah.
Thank you. All those against? Thank you. Any abstentions? That's 24 in favour of the amendment and 20 against. The amendment stands. We will now take a vote on the substantive motion with the amendment. All those in favour of the substantive motion, as amended, please raise your hands.
Okay. And this is unanimous.
Thank you. That's unanimous.
Right. The motion is taken as moved and seconded. So now. Do you want me to lead you through? For members' assistance, we now move on to the fair funding for York motion. Understanding orders. The original motion is moved and seconded. The subsequent amendment is moved and seconded, and we therefore require a vote on accepting the amendment. So, those in favour?
So all those in favour of the amendment? It has been a long meeting, Councillor Healy. Thank you, members. All those against? Any abstentions? That's 24 accepting the amendment, 20 against. We will now vote on the motion as amended. All those in favour?
Again, that's unanimous, Lord Mayor.
That's unanimous. Thank you. And finally, we move to the final one, tackling pavement parking.
There's no amendment, so it's just.
There's no amendment, so we will just vote. All those in favour of the motion?
Again, that's unanimous, Lord Mayor.
That's unanimous. So thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the meeting. I've no further urgent business, so it concludes the meeting for the evening. Thank you, members, and you'll be delighted to know that Councillor Rowley will be back in the chair next time. Thank you.